Hello, my friends. Today we're in Bristol, Virginia, and we're going to tour this beautiful house behind us. It's the oldest house in Bristol. It was built in 1814 and was once the center of a large plantation that sat here. That land consisted of sheep meadows, fields, and even one of the oldest ironworks in the state of Tennessee. Now, the reason I mention the state of Tennessee is because Bristol is a town that sits in two states. There's Bristol, Virginia, and Bristol, Tennessee. And at one time, the land this family owned went all the way into the other state. I'm Daniel Shue, the old house agent. I'm a real estate agent that specializes in old and historic houses. I'm licensed in Virginia and Tennessee, and I work at Prestige Homes of the Tri-Cities in Bristol, Tennessee. Now today, this house is a little special, a little more special than normal. It's because it's my home. I'm excited to show you around here, and it's not for sale, so don't get too excited. But it's also a special day because I have a special guest with me. My wife, Monica, is joining us for this tour. She's on this side of the camera now, and we're going to head in there and take a look at everything that we love about the house and everything that we would love to show you. So join us. Before we go inside, I do want to cover a few things with you and explain sort of how we got the house and some of the things we had to do immediately to get it stabilized. So the house was owned by King University for nearly 20 years, and they had maintained the property. There was a recent roof on it, some new plumbing, new electrical, things like that. And we acquired the house through the college in 2020. Now, there were lots of things that did need to be done, though, lots of restoration work. The Mitchell family had lived here for 120 years, and they had basically not really touched anything since the 1950s. J.D. Mitchell and Louise Mitchell were the people that bought the house in 1899, and their daughter Margaret lived here for 100 years. After her parents passed away, the stories go that she never moved a piece of furniture or never painted. I was told by the Historical Association that they weren't even supposed to move the glasses from her father's desk. So that was both a blessing and a curse. We had some old things to work with, like some old plumbing that needed to be updated, but we also had some wonderful old things to work with, like wallpaper that had been there for 100 years. Yes, it was painted over, but the special part was when we peeled it off, we learned so many things about the house that other people that own old houses may never know. We started outside, though, with this porch and these doors. These doors are a special story. They had some major deterioration over the years. There had been a leak here early on, maybe starting about 80 years ago, and some water penetration had come through. And so we thought we could save them, and it turns out we could not. The gentleman that built these doors for us was a fine woodworker and a great man. Unfortunately, he passed away shortly after they were built, but before he did die, I was able to send him a photo of them up and stained, and he was very proud of his work. This house is also on the National Register of Historic Places. It is because the King family that built the original 1814 house was a very prominent family here in our region. They knew many political figures and had many visits from them. Andrew Johnson, Andrew Jackson, and James Polk are all presidents who have stayed in this house. Robert E. Lee also visited the house for dinner once. Andrew Jackson visited the house so many times, he was actually here the night before his inauguration, or the night leading up to his travel to his inauguration, and James King's son, William, rode with him to D.C. Another thing we did on the porch was to remove the deteriorated wood flooring. The porch is surrounded by a brick knee wall, which the columns sit on. We decided to remove the wood and put concrete in with stone atop so that maintenance wasn't required so often. This was part of our efforts to preserve the house for another 200 years without it being high maintenance. And this worked out very well for us, and our goal is that 100 or 200 years from now, the exterior doesn't need as much maintenance as it once did, therefore definitely prolonging its life. So we're here in the front hall now, and this was a room that required quite a bit of work, but like I said, luckily things were preserved. there was 100-year-old wallpaper here that had been painted over, and it just ripped right off the wall. But the plaster walls underneath were not that great. So we fixed everything up, we painted a nice color, and we're pretty happy with the way it's turned out so far. I'm going to hand it over to Monica and let her talk about a few of her favorite things in here.
So, a few of my favorite things. Well, first of all, is this lovely painting above our library door, done by my great grandmother, Winnie Graham Halsey. She painted as a hobby, and she was quite talented. We're just very proud to have a piece of local, not only local art, but also art done by a beloved family member of ours. Another part of this hall that I truly enjoyed doing was the new portieres. We found the portieres that are in the music room and parlor doorways upstairs in the attic room. They've been here for about 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to add that at the front doors, not only for the nice look of it, but also for utility reasons, because when it gets super cold, we can close those and preserve the temperature of the hall better than without them. So what I did was I found very long velvet curtains online, sewed them together, and then added a thermal layer in between the layers to add that thermal quality to the new portieres of the hall.
There's a special thing I want to talk about in the front hall before we leave, and that is our addition to the house. Each family so far has made additions to the house, literal additions. The Lancaster family that purchased it right after the Civil War built on basically a whole other house on this side, which encompassed the parlor, the dining room, the back hallway, our bedroom, and the Mitchell room, which we're going to tour in a few minutes. And then in 1892, H.E. McCoy purchased the property, and he built on this room, the music room, our bathroom, and our son's bedroom. And then in 1902, the Mitchell family built on the entire back wing that had a bathroom, a butler's room, and a kitchen. We decided, with almost 6,000 square feet and 3 levels, we probably did not need an addition. So we wanted to leave our mark on the house. And as I mentioned earlier, we had some deterioration here at the front doors. We took advantage of that and said, okay, this will be our moment. So we put marble tile in and just created a look that we really liked and thought fit with the house well. And we also installed these columns and this header up here, fit the house's architecture and add a little elegance that was frankly lacking before. We don't always go into projects, restoration projects, and plan to change things. That's never our intent, and we have not changed things with this house. But with the foyer being a little plain at the front entrance and having some issues that needed repaired anyway, we took full advantage of that. Since we're only the 4th or 5th family to live here, we're now leaving our mark.
This is the first room that we did a lot of work on initially. We took the wallpaper down, we repainted, we redid the trim. You refinished the floor.
I did. It was quite a task.
And this was really the first room that was fully decorated.
It was out of the whole house and all these rooms that needed all this done. We thought, we don't even know where to start, so we're just going to dive into one of them, and here we are. The floor was quite a task. I did not come in here with the intention of sanding floors. These floors had never been refinished before in over 100 years. But this floor, where the house had been shut up so long, there had been a few little moisture issues. I don't mean water coming in or anything like that. It's just what happens when you shut a house up. And this floor had actually, as intricate as it is, began to cup in certain spots. And well, again, with making sure this house had another 100, 200 years left easily, we wanted to make sure that the floor was beautiful and useful. And so we did choose to sand it. We were very careful about it, and it turned out very well, and it will be the only time our sander will ever be touching this floor. The rest of the house is being chemically stripped. But it turned out very well, and it's a beautiful color, and feels like we could dance on it once more. The piano was bought for this room in 1904 and has been here ever since. We moved it out to refinish the floors and brought it right back in. The mantle is from, even though this room was built in 1892 or 93, this mantle was from the original house. It was from a parlor in the 1814 house that H.E. McCoy had torn off. I do not know why it was saved. That was a very unusual thing to do back then, but they did save it, and here it is today. The mantle is very important. It was made in Abingdon, of course, in 1814. It appears to be walnut underneath all these layers of paint. And Andrew Johnson attended a wedding in front of it and sat right in front of it. So that's really neat to connect that presidential history. You see, when we acquired the property, the Mitchell family had all their belongings in here. There were no heirs to the property. So everything they had owned since 1899 was still in the house. And that included family heirlooms of the Mitchell family. So Margaret's mother, Louise, was a Morrison from Gate City, Virginia. And the Morrison family had lots of land over there, lots of beautiful things in their house too. Margaret's grandfather, Smith Hale Morrison, spent the last 13 years of his life here. And when he moved, I assume his belongings were split up between, I believe, two daughters. And so a lot of things ended up in this house with him before he died and stayed here. One of those, I believe, was this mirror made around 1820 and was likely from their Scott County home. Also, the blue cobalt vases on the mantle are original to the Mitchell family here and date back over 100 years. The gold mirror here is Mitchell family. The small chair in the window and the music stand are also from the family.
So one of the features in this room that I really, really do love are these wonderful drapes. They're just so beautiful, and they actually carry over into the parlor, as you will see. Another hidden feature of these drapes is the fact that they have a thick layer of felt in between the outside layer and the inside silk layer. That way, when it gets really, really cold, as we've had the past 2 years, where it gets, below zero and further into the negative numbers, we can close these drapes and preserve the heat that is in this room. And that just makes me feel better, actually, that we can
A little warmer.
A little warmer, yeah. And also the chandelier that we added, that we have carried with us throughout our marriage. So that has been in every house that we have lived in since our first few years as a married couple.
Yes, that chandelier I purchased out of the back of a friend's pickup truck. She drove up one day and said, "I have something you might be interested in." And I went back there, and in her truck in a beat up cardboard box was this beauty, and I got it for a whopping $125. So we've carried it around all through our marriage, but it's not leaving this house. One of my absolute favorite things in this room was not in this house, though. It was something that I purchased, and it's from my hometown. Well, one of my hometowns. I grew up in an area of Washington County, Virginia called Clinchburg, and it's where Glade Spring, Meadowview, and Saltville, Virginia all just sort of connect right there. So I went to Meadowview Elementary. I lived in Meadowview, but then I went to Glade Spring Middle, and a lot of family lived in Glade, and we were always in Glade Spring. So it always felt like that was home as well as Meadowview. Very, very tight area. So this organ was from the original Glade Spring Baptist Church, and I bought it from a friend of mine whose father saved it when they built the new church, and he took it home. So I was very glad to get that. I'm glad to get it because it's a piece of Glade Spring history, connects to my family, and I'm also glad to be the keeper of it because it meant so much to him. We're here in the parlor now, and the parlor was built on by the Lancaster family in around 1881. It's part of a large wing on this house. Now, we have another fireplace behind us. There are actually 8 fireplaces in this house. And the funny thing is, they almost each date from some kind of different time in some way. Even the 1881 edition, even though there were 4 fireplaces in there, they have different period mantles. One has an old mantle from the 1814 house. One has an original mantle. And then the 2 downstairs look like they were changed out with oak mantles in around 1902. We actually found the coolest thing when Our radiator system that we had here, we love radiators, but it was gone. It was dead. We had to have it removed. And when we did behind the radiator, we found the exact color of this room was at one time the color that we had already picked to paint it. So we were happy to restore that by
Hmm.
accident, and we're very happy with that.
And the reduced lead amount, because the pamphlet that we found that had, I think it had written beside it, par,
Antique rose.
Parlor Antique Rose. It was, they proudly advertised that it was lead based paint, and ours is not, obviously. So, but we also have the drapes that come through here match the ones in the music room, so there's a cohesive flow. We have combined our furniture that we already had with pieces that were already here. And another cool feature about this room is that it has so many hidden places for things like Rory's magnetic blocks that he likes playing with, board games, and his Legos that are, nicely tucked away when they're not being used. So it hides functionality as well, which I really like.
And this room is very cool because a lot of the things in here were here from the Mitchell family. The sofa set,
Mm-hmm.
the a couple of tables, and probably around 75% of the artwork
Mm-hmm.
was not only original but actually in this room, and we did not move it. We've just had it restored one piece at a time. But the very special pieces in here were actually the secretary and this oval portrait. The secretary belonged to Smith Hale Morrison, which was Margaret Mitchell's grandfather. It dates to probably 1820, 1830, and it's just a fantastic piece. The front drops down and makes a desk. It's got nice little cubby holes in it. It is in need of some restoration. We have not gotten to that yet. We are restoring each piece by piece. And then the oval portrait is actually Smith Hale himself, and it's been nice connecting these dots. We actually had a couple over this week that bought Smith's house, and we were able to let them touch the furniture that once belonged in their house, and that was fun. One of my favorite things in here is this music box. It's around 1860 and it plays 8 songs. It's just a beautiful piece, takes me back in time every time I hear it.
And then we've incorporated the family photos on top of our piano.
And on this very important family piece of hers, we have brought more Mitchell family things over here. The house came with tons and tons of photos of the Mitchell family. Some we knew, some we did not know. And we assembled the ones we knew for the most part on the piano, or the ones that were framed rather. And it turned out very special. So basically, everybody that ever lived in our house is on top of the piano displayed proudly.
So this is the room that we call the solarium. Right now, this is one of the rooms that we have not had a chance to really work on.
It doesn't have plumbing, so it's not important right now.
Yeah. The triage was working kitchen, working bathroom, working laundry room, and a place to sleep. So this room has not been touched yet. It's kind of a catch-all room right now. And we also like to have, breakfast out here. We like to do arts and crafts out
We
here.
like to do lots of things out here. That's why it's a messy catch-all at the moment. We're still trying to sort our lives out and figure out how we fit into this house.
Yes, yes, and figure out, what this room actually what the functionality of this room will be.
And this part of the house is intriguing because this door in 1881 was actually the front door. It was moved. We're going to show you the original front door in a few minutes. The one we came through is not the original front door. So they moved the front door here when they built this addition on, and it actually sort of had a view down Solar Street until Greystone House next door was built. Mm-hmm. It was a porch then. We have blueprints from the 1892 renovation showing the addition of this porch in this exact shape with a brick knee wall. And it looks to us like these windows were put in the 1920s to make it a glass room or solarium, Florida room, sunroom, whatever you prefer to call it. But it has incredible views of downtown, and we enjoy spending a lot of time out here. It's not too hot in the summer, and it's
Nope.
not really that cold in the winter. It's a good space.
It's the best place to watch a thunderstorm
And
or to watch a
snow.
snow.
So what we're going to do out here is pretty interesting. It's a little different than the rest of the house. We've decided to paint all the woodwork and everything in this room sort of a black color, like a poppy seed or some kind of a deep, dark brown black color.
Yeah.
And, have kind of, it's such a bright room, and, sunlight's okay for most people, but we like it to be a little more contemplative. So we're going to have some velvet drapes that don't cover everything up, but still allow us to see out, but create a little more of a cozy space and just not such a stark glass environment.
It's going to be versatile. So it just depends on what you want. If you want a little bit more privacy, because our neighbors are so close, we're going to have shears that match the rest of the shears in the house, so they kind of coordinate with the trim color of the exterior of the house, so you can close those, still get some light in, but have a little bit more privacy. Also, we're going to have velvet curtains that when they're closed, they can block out the windows, but we're probably just going to keep them open. And we're going to have plants out here. It's going to kind of be reminiscent of a cast iron solarium.
The solarium is where we began to incorporate some of my family pieces too. My mom, this was her beautiful dining table that we used to eat Thanksgiving dinner at when I was young, and we're just happy to have it in here and to be able to use it every day. She's been gone for 4 years now, and to use the things that were so special to her is very important to us.
Again, this is another room that is a work in progress. There are some structural issues in this room that we still are working to figure out. So that's another challenge of this room, but we do use this room a lot. We eat dinner here. We had Thanksgiving here for the first time in the house last year, and it's just a neat room.
Everybody says, "Oh, how much work does it need? I don't see anything wrong." And I'm like, "There's a big crack behind you because the wall's bowing.
Yes.
It needs a little work."
Yes.
So we're still maybe about a year out from the full restoration.
So this is not the final color of the dining room. We're going to go
sort of a test.
It's a test to see how dark we want this room and what kind of hue of red, burgundy, purple red burgundy that we would like. And then also we have decided to faux finish the woodwork in here to make it look more like the mahogany doors that we have in the house. And we're also working on installing this humongous mirror above the fireplace and getting that sorted out.
Yeah, the table, the silk rug under the table, and the buffet are all original to the Mitchell family. So they've been in this room for 120 years. Mm-hmm. Some of the artwork is as well. The painting above the buffet is a Mitchell family piece. Mm-hmm. Painting of the flowers belonged to my mother. It was a very special piece to her. She loved that very much. And the painting over the piano is a fun piece because that is one of our very few arguments that Monica and I had. We usually pretty much get along.
We agree on 95% of everything.
Yeah, we like the same stuff or we wouldn't have been married.
To give context, I was at work when I got the call about this painting. Daniel called and said, "There's this painting at a local antique store. We need it." And my answer was, "No, we need groceries. We need to pay the power bill. We don't need a painting." And then a few weeks later, we're in the same antique store, and you can tell the rest of this story.
She comes up to me in the shop and says, "You're not going to believe this. I found the most beautiful painting, and I think you'll like it." I said, "Oh, did you now?" So we walked back a few booths, and voila, the same painting that I wanted her to buy was in this booth, and she was gazing at it. So we ended up bringing that home.
Yes.
And it's a lovely piece. Now, the piano under the painting, to make a long story short, sort of call it a family piece of mine. This belonged to my cousin, Charlotte. Her husband, Gary, was a piano restorer, well known in the area. An amazing genius of a person he was. This piano dates to 1820. It belonged to Millie McClellan, who was the wife of George McClellan, the commander of the U.S. Army. The piano, though, has an even deeper history than that. It was brought to New York from England and finished up and sold by John J. Rickers, who dealt in some very high-quality musical instruments for the ultra-wealthy in New York. The only other piece I've been able to find of his is in the Library of Congress. So we don't know the impact of, the historical significance or the value of this piano, but it's very important and we cherish it. So Monica loves cooking, she loves entertaining, she loves tea, not the kind that you put in a coffee cup in a tea bag. I'm talking about
loose leaf in a teapot.
So she has fun entertaining in our other rooms, and I love those rooms as well. And we both adore the music room. We both fit in there. But this room, I like to say it's my domain, but actually
it's Rory's.
She's in here all the time, and Rory has completely taken it over. But it sort of acts as our living room. We call it the library, and this is actually the oldest part of the house on the first floor. This was the 1814 dining room from the original King house, and Robert E. Lee had dinner right in this room one time. We have all kinds of interesting things in here that we've collected. Anything from animal bones, wet specimens. We have a human skull. We have Egyptian artifacts. We have artifacts that were excavated from the yard.
Rattlesnake.
We have a rattlesnake, stuffed.
Stuffed rattlesnake.
Native American artifacts. It just keeps going and going. And we collect antique taxidermy too. So it's a fun place to be. It's very educational. Every time one of Rory's friends come over, this is the room they want to check out, and this is the room they remember. And I've heard, "Are you a Harry Potter fan?" many times.
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
like, yeah, Harry Potter's okay, but this
wasn't inspired by Harry Potter. But we are Harry Potter fans.
It's a collection.
That's the first connection that kids put together.
It's a collection that just came together and developed this aesthetic.
It started when I gave you you wanted to decorate a space in a certain way, and I said, okay, you get one room in every house that we live in.
She said, you get one room and you can do your man cave thing in. So our last house in Johnson, I decided since it was a Victorian house, I would go sort of lean into that Victorian feel a little bit with the things that I liked, and this house as well. And so she came in and said, oh yeah, I actually like it. The fireplace area here in the living room is an interesting little area where there's some cool stuff. The fireplace itself did not look like this when we bought the house. There was a small Victorian style mantle here with ceramic tile and an iron surround. I knew since this was an original room of the house, that fireplace was not appropriate and was something the Mitchells had added. And even though that was 100 years old, we didn't have a lot of the King house left, so we wanted to sort of bring something back to the way it used to be. This mantle, we had documentation that it had been moved upstairs to Rory's bedroom. So we brought it back down, which was a massive, laborious task. It's huge and it's heavy. And when I removed the old mantle and the tile, I could see the ghost line of the arched fireplace from the King family. So we opened that back up. That was so much fun. People had not seen inside that fireplace in over 120 years, and that's an interesting feeling. And we had a mason restore the firebox, and I actually laid the new hearth in front, and it turned out really well. So we sort of have a piece of what the house in this room looked like 200 years ago. Above the mantle is a very fun piece, and it's going to be framed this week or next week, so my apologies for just a map hanging on the wall. But this is the John Wood map from 1821 of Washington County, Virginia. You can see across the top it says Russell, and that says Tazewell. The right side says Wythe, the bottom says Grayson, where Monica's from, and this side says State of Tennessee, and then the very left end says Scott, and those are all the surrounding counties. Now, Smith County apparently was not a county then, and Washington County took up both Washington, Smith, and Bristol. And so what's amazing about this map is you can see the Great Road coming through here. You can see places in Glade Spring that are still there and some that are long gone. You can see the entire town of Abingdon, which was incredibly small then. And then you travel on down through here, and there's some writing here at the state line that says J. King's Brick Home, which was the house that we're standing in right now. That is so fascinating to me. I just think that is very cool. John Wood was a cartographer, and I believe he only got 7 counties documented for the state before he died of cholera.
So one of the tasks that I took on when we acquired this house was to catalog the books that were left in this house. I'm still working on that. What I've found so far is that most of these books were Louise Mitchell, Margaret Mitchell's mother's books. She had books sent to her by friends and family. She had quite a collection of her own, and she also was a big fan she had to be a big fan of poetry. And each of the books that were hers have Louise Mitchell or Louise Morrison in written in the cover. She also was a avid collector of four-leaf clovers, so a lot of these books that I have cataloged, every time I would open them, four-leaf clovers would spill out. Also, she would tuck away news articles, little notes. She would write in the margins little opinions or inspirations that she had while reading. And she also had an interest in spiritualism, because there is a whole shelf here that we have of 1902 spiritualist books that were Louise Mitchell. She was a very avid reader of these books that had to do with psychic control, palmistry, the past lives, soul's escape, psychic philosophy. Just an interesting little personal aspect of this avid reader.
I want to cover a few of my favorite things in here before we walk out of here. One of which is this Civil War cannonball in this little collection here. This is a grape shot cannonball underneath that I purchased when I was 14, and these 2 Civil War bullets that I bought from our friends Tim and Debbie. Also, in my personal collection of unusual things is this Egyptian shopti, which was made as part of a grouping of about 100 that were placed in a tomb to protect and serve the pharaohs and kings in the afterlife. This little guy is about 5,000 years old, and I purchased him at a shop at the Leitner Museum in St. Augustine. And behind me here is an arrowhead board that I recently created with arrowheads that my parents have found over the years in our region. Every time someone would plow a field, they would be there looking for these little guys. And some of these apparently date to 8,000 and 10,000 years ago. And I think that that's really part of my beginning in being interested in history and old things, was walking through dusty fields with them in the spring and looking for a piece of someone's life that existed thousands of years ago. This room is packed so full of stuff. This whole cabinet here is basically nothing but different kinds of animal bones. And we've got bear skulls, frog skeletons, coyote skulls. There's a piranha, a bat, some wet specimens, a sheep heart, all kinds of interesting things in here, and antique medicine bottles too. It's fun to collect all this.
This room, that was a collaborative effort between myself and Daniel. I laid out the lay of the kitchen, where everything was going to go, and he built around it.
She's good at telling me what to do.
But it's really neat. I wanted it to be a bright, warm space, so we chose to have a more monochromatic color scheme to the kitchen. The glass doors in the kitchen are from a 100-year-old house. We have a very heavy but very durable cast iron sink, which I just love. It's kind of the focal point of the whole kitchen. It was hard to move, hard to plumb.
I think around 350 pounds.
Yes, and the person who helped us move it in said, I'm not moving another sink like this ever."
Not that good of friends.
We have we have a really wonderful neighbor who was able to help us build out the solid cabinet doors to match as closely as he could the butler's pantry doors. So it looks like the cabinets were always here. And we also followed the ghost line of the original cabinets. So we were able to figure out where everything needed to go and how it fit in the kitchen. And
we did, under the hideous brick fireboard that was up here. There was a little bit of like 70s wallpaper,
yes,
and then straight to the plaster from 100 years ago. So we were able to say, oh, well, the kitchen we designed pretty much looks like what was here anyway. And then I built all the cabinets. After Carl helped us make the doors, I made them from pine. So we figured that they would be much more durable than anything we could get at a big box store. And they're custom made, and they're huge.
Huge and very heavy. There was one cabinet where we were lifting it up, and I was certain that one of us was going to get crushed.
And we had to put these cabinets into brick because the walls are solid brick. So that was interesting to say the least.
Oh yeah.
I probably over nailed and over screwed, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, it's better than to have your cabinets fall off the wall.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. And then we put supports under them. Monica decided she wanted a prep station over here with a little alcove underneath and lighting. And yeah, I said, I can't do that. And she's like, yeah, you can, and you're going to. And so that's what we came up with, and it turned out great. We've got tons of storage. And we also went with butcher block countertops.
Yes.
We thought that would be something we could install ourselves, and also be something that fit the period pretty well. And also, if you've seen those videos where people are painting their granite countertops, you know, they're not painting butcher block. No. That's something that really never goes out of style.
Exactly. It's very classic. And then, of course, we had to bring along with us our stove that looks like a wood stove, but is actually electric. It confuses a lot of people when they come into this kitchen.
And the cast iron that we use every day, those are not for looks. Those are our cast iron skillets.
It's our cast iron collection plus what we use on a daily basis, which I enjoy using cast irons. It's easy to cook in, I find, and easy to clean. So
the chandelier was original to the dining room. It is pewter and dates to about 1915, and we shortened the chain, brought it in here, and put a larger chandelier in the dining room. We thought that was a little more fitting. And then also, Monica's great-grandmother did this lovely painting we have in here that reads, "No matter where I serve my guests, they seem to like my kitchen best." So come on into the Jackson room. You're walking through a window right now from 1814 and entering into the oldest bedroom in the house. We call it the Jackson room because Andrew Jackson stayed in this room many, many times. And I guess the other presidents that stayed here also slept in this room. We decided to go in a different direction with the decor. As you might be able to see, it's not Victorian like the rest of the house. And the reason for that is, of course, this being an 1814 room, it was a little more federal era. We also wanted to take it back to its heyday, which was 1830 to 1840, when the house had a post office attached to it and was a stagecoach stop as well. So that's when the house was really buzzing. That's when Andrew Jackson visited the family. And so we decorated it in that style. We went with the original color of the walls we found. It was a lime wash, and so we replicated that. The trim work, we painted brown to match what we found was here, which was an extremely dark stain under all the paint. And we will eventually strip this woodwork and put a dark stain back on it. But right now, we just wanted to make the house livable, restore what was most important, and get in here. The portrait above the mantle is of a man named David Kane. He was from Gate City, and we believe that he was Margaret Mitchell's great uncle. He was an attorney, and his law books are over here in the bookcase. His law books also later belonged to Margaret's grandfather, Smith Hale. So it's really neat to have these books dating from the 1820s with both David's signature and Mr. Morrison's signature. And I love this one. 2 volumes for $8. 2 volumes for $8 from 1820. That was a heck of a lot of money back then. We've had fun decorating this space because this is really the era of architecture we love most. and we had pieces already for this room. We bought a few things for this room, and the Mitchell family left heirlooms here that match the period as well. So we have a 1790s blanket chest from Scott County. We have a piece that was my mother's, this late 18th century sewing rocker, and the basket was from Monica's family. The cabin over here was something that my dad and I made when I was around 15, and it is a replica of the King Stewart house in Saltville, Virginia, where Jeb Stuart's wife lived after the Civil War, and it was built by William King from Saltville, who established the salt works and basically used that money to build Abingdon. This piece right here is a Mitchell family piece, and it is dated under the marble 1860 by the furniture maker, and even has a little drawing of himself. The mirror is a Mitchell piece. It's about 1820, and it was here in the house also. This is a special piece to me. This quilt, I went to my grandmother, who was a quilter, when I was 15 or 16, and I said, Mama, I want a quilt made, but I want it in a homespun style. So I want a chicken as the pattern, and I want you to mix all the fabrics together, kind of like a crazy quilt. And she said, "Are you sure about that?" Because she was very picky about how she made her quilts. And so I came back a few weeks later, and this was created. And then my sister kidnapped it and quilted it for Christmas one year. So I have loved it ever since, and we've created a nice family heirloom for Rory to inherit one day. Another piece in this room that I find incredible is this chest of drawers, which we purchased on Facebook Marketplace. I think we paid like $100 or $110 for it. The person selling it knew that it was nice, but it was in really bad condition. Lots of chipped veneer, lots of issues. And so our friend Carl refinished it. He actually had rosewood veneer, which is really unusual, and he repaired all those chips and made this incredible piece of furniture, and we just love it. Not everybody has a rosewood chest of drawers in their bedroom. One last thing about this room is, if you come into this space and you know anything about old houses or historic architecture, you would automatically look down and think, well, this floor is not from 1814. And yes, you'd be correct. It looks like it was overlaid around 1900. We were curious as to why that was. We found out that it is actually covering a blood stain. We'll get to that in another video, because yes, we do have some spooks, but we're not going to go in depth on that today.
So this is what we are referring to as the Mitchell room. We took all of the furniture that we couldn't incorporate or couldn't find a home for in the rest of the house. I'm not a big fan of wallpaper. I usually err on the side of let's paint the wall. This wallpaper, however, is just absolutely gorgeous. And we're going to try to.
There's not much left.
There's not much left. The only spot where we think we can preserve this wallpaper is on the chimney. You know, some people would say, well, why don't you have it replicated? Well, as they say, when we win the lottery, there will be signs. But for now, the only partially undamaged spot in this room with this gorgeous wallpaper is above the fireplace.
Yeah, and there's some things in this room that were in here, but most of it we did move in because the furniture in this room wasn't really that interesting. It was pretty old, but we chose to find it another home.
Yes.
We had everything was here. You know, in order for us to live here, we had to get rid of a few things that didn't match up with what was here and match up with the things that we loved and already had. The dresser, the washstand, and the bed were originally in our bedroom. We're thinking now that it belonged to Margaret's grandfather, Smith Hale Morrison, and was likely in Scott County in the 1870s, but it was her parents' bedroom. We also believe Margaret and Dowman were born in this bed, and we believe that both of her parents and maybe Smith Hale died in this bed. So it really does sort of represent the cycle of life, which is very interesting. We wanted a queen size bed because it's hard for two people to sleep in a full size bed today. I don't know why, but that's just the way we are. And so it's in here. We also brought this beautiful commode set in, which was on the washstand for probably 100 years. So it's still on the same washstand.
Mm-hmm.
This was a gift to JD and Louise Mitchell in 1899 for their wedding. Just amazing.
And in perfect condition.
Perfect condition for the most part. There's a crack in one piece, but it's a big set. We also have some clothing on display in here, and these things will be tweaked and look a lot better than they do now when this room is completed, but
Mm-hmm.
it is far from finished.
It's on the list. we have a list of ongoing projects in this house. Mine is almost finished. I wanted a working laundry room, which we just now got up and running. And the next on the list is Rory's request of the attic library and TV room.
I want that.
So,
But we have some clothing in here, some dating back to the early 1900s, some dating back to the 50s. That was Margaret's. We were told that she was so old, and she loved fashion, and so we were told she attended the church we attend, Emmanuel Episcopal, and she would come to church sometimes in an outfit that was 50 or 60 years old, and that's intriguing to me and very interesting. I've also heard she would come to church with her cat entourage. They would leave the door open for her because as she got older, she had a hard time pushing it. It's a large oak door, and the priest would look back sometimes and see that she was back there with about 10 cats in the back of the church. Love that. And we have all kinds of artifacts in here, though. We have everything from medicine bottles from the early 1900s, hundreds of letters we found in the attic. Mm-hmm. We have rugs in here we have to deal with and figure out.
More collections of books.
Original draperies that are in perfect condition. And then the pièce de résistance in this room is this very simple looking fireplace mantle. This bedroom was added on in 1881, but that mantle is from the 1814 bedroom that was torn off. So again, we don't know why in the world they chose to reuse that, but they did. Mm-hmm. And that also could tell us that some of the records might be off and that those two rooms were not torn off in 1892, but may have been done when the Mitchells built this addition on. So we're still kind of foggy on that. Can't find any good evidence of it. This is probably my favorite space. The original staircase, or what's left of it from 1814. This staircase originally went from near the servant stairs we showed you earlier, went from the library, because they took it out there and expanded the library, and then came up the second floor and then came all the way up to the third floor, which we think was probably used for enslaved people, perhaps the house slaves and nanny, things like that. And so this staircase is just beautiful. It shows the quality and craftsmanship of the 1814 era in our region. It's just beautiful. It's called a winding staircase. It's simple but elegant. You've got this nice, swoop here in the banister, very gentle to hold on to. But you have these square spindles, which were very, I guess, vernacular. And it's a great space. It's very interesting. We're still working back here and hopefully we'll be done in the next few months. But that door behind us is a nice little storage room. And then the door where I came from is actually one of the only original third floor rooms left after they tore off the other side of the house later. So we're turning that into sort of a family area, TV room, and our third floor library. And, we do have to use these spaces. This is not a museum. So while we are using it and changing its use from a place where enslaved women would stay to a storage area to a place where we watch TV, we're still trying to honor the past with it. So we are keeping the furnishings in there rustic. We are keeping the original boards on the walls, and we're painting it as the way it would have looked back then. We're also retaining the original floors and working very hard to not heavily refinish those, but keep that space as rustic looking as possible so that when we're in there, we remember what it was used for and we don't forget its past. Also in this room, we found this little guy behind the wardrobe that used to sit here. This was an unusual feature in our area where the window actually sort of traversed the second floor and the third floor in the middle of the landing. And this was apparently done to create symmetry from the exterior. And so outside, you would see 5 windows in a row, but inside, the staircase actually broke into the middle of the window. And what was beautiful about this is it had been covered up since 1893, and we have the original sort of salmon colored trim paint. And that answered a lot of questions because we could not figure out what color this room would have been painted originally, and we're trying to restore it back to the way it looked. And so we were excited to find that. We're planning on it goes nowhere anymore. It's the back of Rory's bedroom. So we're planning on putting a false window in here and trying to replicate a squinty-eyed view of what it looked like back then. This area is what we refer to as the back hall, and in 1881 was the front hall when they changed the front door again. And there was a staircase here that was probably Italianate in style, and H.E. McCoy decided that he wanted something a little more updated, so he took all that out and put this one in. We have utilized this area, and it's our main staircase, but we have utilized it to exhibit our family heritage and the history of the house. We've combined all these pictures together. Some are from Monica's family, some are from my family, some are from the King family. We've mixed the Mitchell family in. We even have crests from the Mitchell family's ancestors. And it's just turned out to be a really neat space. We believe that in order to tell Rory where he's headed, he needs to know where he came from. And so every morning when he walks down the stairs and gets ready for school, he is guided by his ancestors and the people that used to live in this house. In the servants' hall, we have an unfinished wall. It will remain unfinished because beneath the wallpaper was the ghost line of the original front door from 1814. This giant arch gently traces out the pattern of an entrance that was covered nearly 150 years ago. We also uncovered the original arched back door in our library, but unfortunately it had to be documented and covered over to retain our much-needed bookcases. Every old house has a story, but the King house tells one that belongs to all of Bristol. Standing here on this hill since 1814, it has watched the town grow from a handful of settlers to a vibrant place we call home. Its walls have seen war and peace, prosperity and hardship. Yet through it all, the house remained, carrying the memory of every family who ever called it home. When we stepped inside, it wasn't just the architecture that drew us in. It was the spirit of the place. You can almost feel the echo of footsteps, the laughter, the prayers, the hands that built it with care more than 2 centuries ago. That's what makes it worth saving. Our family took on this restoration because we believe these old homes are more than wood and plaster. They're time capsules of craftsmanship, hope, and endurance. They remind us who we are and how far we've come. And when they're gone, a piece of our collective story disappears with them. Preserving the King House isn't just about restoring a building. It's about honoring the people who lived, worked, and dreamed within its walls. It's about making sure that long after we're gone, this piece of Bristol's past will still be standing to tell its story to anyone who cares enough to listen. Thank you so much for watching. If you love old houses as much as I do, then I invite you to follow along on all my platforms. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow along on Facebook for daily posts. And for a deep dive into history and real estate, you can subscribe to my newsletter. At theoldhouseagent.com, you're going to find valuable resources, regional history about Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee, plus all my current listings. All these likes, shares, and subscriptions to these videos help keep the stories of these places alive. I'm Daniel Shue, the Old House Agent, and I'll see you on the next video.